Hello, everybody, and welcome here for the third time, or the third live stream, and this time for DataFlex-26 that has finally been released yesterday. So today, just like usual, we are going over all the new DataFlex-26 features, which I hope, and well, we hope you will enjoy. Once again, my name is Bram. I work at the R&D department at Data Access, and today, as opposed to last two times, Robin, which was of course very nice to have, but this time we have somebody different because we have.
My name is Niels. I'm also a member from the R&D team.
Yeah. So today Niels will be assisting me instead. So yeah, let's. I think we're just going to get to it. One thing of notice here is, of course, is that you can always leave your questions in the chat, just like usual. There are some very nice people in the background who are going to go through your questions, answer them either for you or pass them on to us to handle them. If you do not see a chat window, do a little refresh so that you might get it then. Yeah, so any questions, always welcome, and we'll answer them when we get them. So let's get started, I think. So let's get on to the very first topic, which is, of course, well, where do we get DataFlex-26? So, Niels, if you will take it over here.
So, right here I have the download center ready. And of course, at the very start, you will see the DataFlex Studio. You just press that. And then in the top, it will just tell you download the latest version to get the DataFlex-26 release.
Yeah, so installation will be just as usual. Of course, once again, the link is download.dataflex.dev if you want to go along or anything like that. So, just like usual, we're going to go through all the topics of the What's New. So let's take that in front of us here.
Yeah, so here I have the What's New of 26. So we're going to go through all the features at once and then show them one by one in the studio. So the first big feature we have in 26 is the package manager, which is actually going to redefine how you use dependencies and libraries in your workspace. Currently in 25, you have a lot of local libraries that are somewhere on your file system. Sometimes you even have multiple copies of them spread over multiple workspaces, and it can be a pain to track and manage them through your workspaces. And the package manager offers a single way to easily install these packages and manage them with a click of a button, actually.
Very nice business text. Yeah, so long-awaited feature, the package manager. Many Decembers have passed since. And like Niels said, it offers a nice way to, get your updates for once, because of course people have been sending their local libraries over the forums, just through zips, emails, anything like that. And now we finally, with the click of a button, which we'll obviously show in a minute, we can get our packages installed and also updates, maybe the most important part. What else do we have?
Yeah, so next up we have the web UI is now a package. So of course, from 25 and 24, you're used to the web controls being part of your studio installation. Now that we have the package manager, it's easier for us to extract this from the DataFlex installation and put them in its own package, which means we can roll out updates much faster and just steer a bit faster in that way, which means, of course, in older versions, you were used to making a forum post or HTTP ticket, and you got a hotfix that you had to put inside of your index HTML. And now we can simply just push a new version of this package and you can download it straight away.
Yeah, something also that's very nice here is that, of course, well, we haven't had that many, but of course, there have been times where we had some security patches that we had to do, and we had to release an entirely new studio just for a single JavaScript patch or in the Web UI framework. And now this being a package is simply, as Niels already said, a simple click of a button to update the package to the latest version, and you're done. All right, what do we have?
Next up, we have the new create new dialog. Of course, when you work in the studio on a project, you usually go to your create new dialog that used to be a Windows dialog, where you would go to create your new views, projects, zooms, selects, new classes, stuff like that. We've rewritten the create new dialog to be a Flexon application, which means that it now is actually a web browser inside of the studio that allows us to have some better styling and have it look a bit more fresh.
Yeah, this is the first one where we actually try to apply the new styling, right? That's
It's the first one. And then it offers some new features like a search bar that actually searches through every single wizard that's available in this create new. Instead of having to click through all the subjects and trying to look for the one that you need, you can just search it up and find it way more quickly.
Nice.
And there's also a little plus one that it actually also has links to the learning center. So for some views like a class or a select, you will see that it has a link now that you can click that takes you straight to the learning center. So you can find more information about that specific wizard or how it's supposed to be used. Next up, we have the model dialogs in the drill down applications. So of course, we moved Web UI to a package, but that's not all we've done for 26. One of the other big features that you can now use model dialogs in drill down applications, just like you're used to with views. You can just navigate to them. They are part of the state hash. So if you refresh, they will reappear instead of just being gone. And they also show in the navigation designer. So you can just drag lines in the navigation designer to navigate from a view to a dialog, from a dialog back to a view. It just acts as a normal view now in the navigation system.
And then the selection form, I see.
Yeah, then we have a selection form, which is just an easy way to actually do like a multi-column search. So you can define multiple entry items that it's going to search on, but at the end of the day, it's going to just simply select a single record, which you choose. And this just allows you to have like an easier way of finding specific records for your customers. Next up, we have the extended dashboard sample. So in 25, we made the widgets. We had a very basic web or mobile example dashboard that used these widgets. We wanted a better example for people to implement and actually use in their own application. So we extended on the dashboard sample. We made new widgets.
Yeah, to kind of give people an example of how they can design their widgets and use composite and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so instead of just having simple lists, we now have stuff like charts. We show you how you can make a global filter that actually changes the data of all the widgets in the dashboard. And also an example on how you can still have a filter per widget, so configure them separately.
Nice.
Then next up, for WebUI, we also have the dark mode and CSS variables. So I believe the CSS variables were already introduced in 25.
Yeah.
And in 26, we expanded on this. We use these CSS variables to easily change the theme based on, what you decide you want to do with your CSS theme. So you now have a df light and df dark CSS selector that's being applied on your web app. And based on which is active, it changes what variables are actually being used. So when you're using dark theme, you of course have the darker variables instead of the light variables. Of course, you're free to change these however you like. And out of the box, the material, flat touch, and the desktop theme have these dark themes. The lesser used ones like the Windows Like and the Modern Sky don't have dark theme out of the box.
Well, I don't know if many of you agree on the stream, but you know, at least we tried. All right, what do we have next?
Next, we have hard executables. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, right. So based on many requests also from Helpdesk Express and on the forums as well, we sometimes do get the question where people try to get through security checks with many different of their customers. And sometimes the reports give back that, you know, some features aren't enabled, even though they're not as applicable to DataFlex as they would be to another language like C++ or anything like that. But just to get rid of the warnings and provide in some cases better security, we enable some additional flags to also make DataFlex applications now finally pass the Microsoft application test suite. So that should greatly improve the overall security checks where, you know, DataFlex would normally flag out as, hey, there might be some options that you might want to look into. Those are now gone. So that's a very nice improvement. Of course, not very much to see here, but it's very nice to have.
Yeah. The next up, we have reproducible builds.
Yeah, that's also one of the lesser, more technical features where DataFlex applications would normally differ on every build, which had mostly to do with the fact that the DataFlex header would commonly have a timestamp in it. But in DataFlex, which some people find useful, but in DataFlex 25, I believe, maybe 24, we already added the comp timestamp define, which if you do need a timestamp in your application, you can use that in any place that you like. Whereas we did remove the default timestamp from the header. So now when you press build, and then press build again, you will always get the same executable with no byte change. That's a great improvement there, and should also help with sometimes Windows Defender and other antivirus applications marking it as a different file, because well, that's one of the issues that we hope that it fixes more. So all right, next
up we have the Excel import wizard, which is new in 26. Of course, as you can imagine from the name, this allows you to import an Excel sheet and turn it into a database table. Of course, this is nice if you have like a hobby project where you've written your data in an Excel sheet somewhere. You can convert that to a database table and actually start building an application based on that Excel sheet.
Yeah, this is one of the first features where we actually, of course, we have many seasoned DataFlex developer where they know exactly what they're doing. But of course, we also have some new customers that, are less a programmer and more of, hey, I want to try and make things quick. And this is one of those tools where we try to appease to them by allowing them to have, if they, like you said, if they already have an Excel sheet or anything like that, or some form of data where they can import that into DataFlex. And this is one of those first steps. And well, we hope to bring more in the future, but this is one of the first things that we like to try and might sometimes come in handy for the more seasoned developers as well. So take a look.
Yeah, then next up we have the improved documentation.
Yeah, well, I think that's just a nice surprise for last. So let's keep that for the very last bit, I guess. So let's just take a first look at the package manager, I suppose.
Yeah, so let's go to the studio now. And right here I already have the web order 26 workspace open. I'm on the workspace dashboard, and one thing you can actually notice here is that we now have a new tile on the workspace dashboard that says packages, which tells you exactly how many packages are actually being used by this workspace, and if applicable, if you have any updates for those packages. And how that works, we'll get into that a bit later. Yeah,
we hope in the future that we get a nice message balloon or something like that telling you have updates. But for now, when using the package manager and you want to know if you've updates, the first thing that you see when opening your workspace, this is where you can find it. Yeah. And of course, now also with the package manager, you'll be showing. So let's get into that.
Yeah, so to get to the package manager, here in the toolbar, you have your package manager button that you can press, or you can press Ctrl-Shift-P, which is going to open the package manager.
Zoom a bit out for the screen share DPI.
On the browse screen.
Yes.
And on the browse, you will see all the packages that are available on the package manager server.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing of note here is that this is always the latest version of a package, which might or might not be, or that specific version might not always be applicable to your workspace. But it will always show here the latest. And then, of course, like we're already going through, we also have the install tab here, which will, of course, show all the packages that you have installed. Based on feedback, this view first only showed you the packages that were included at top level. So the only ones that your workspace is referring to. But now, based on the feedback, we've also added the nested dependencies here, which you might either like or might not like, but I think we'll get accustomed to it as well. So you get all the packages in one overview of everything that you have installed or that other packages might depend on as well. And then the rest we'll get into later, I think, a bit. And then we also, of course, we have the third tab. The most important part, I think, partially of the package manager is, of course, the updates. Now we don't need to send other people an email of, hey, I have an update or anything like that. You can simply go to the updates tab and press upgrade for any package that you might have installed either through Git or the package manager server, which of course also a very nice thing to mention here is that the initiative with the package manager mostly is that all the packages that are on the server are mostly open source or at least free to use in your commercial applications, which also means that they are available for everyone. If you do have proprietary libraries that you want to share between projects, workspaces, or anything like that, the DataFlex package manager also supports Git, which is a version control system, and it allows you to contact your own proprietary Git or version control system to fetch packages from there as well. So that's how you can separate between private libraries that you might develop yourself and you don't want to share, and the packages that you use globally or publicly. Some had the request of adding other version control systems as well. We might look into that in the future. yeah, but it was a little bit more of a hassle than we were anticipating. So for now, it's Git packages, and then of course your local libraries like you're accustomed to. If you do want to add a package, maybe that's a nice thing to show here, is that we have a nice little button in the corner, and this kind of replaces the maintain libraries view as well. So you'll also notice when you install 26 that the maintain libraries button is gone, and instead you'll be led to the package manager, where of course the install tab shows you the packages that you have installed, and you can either remove them or whatever you need to do. And then this button is there to actually add additional libraries. So you can see here that we have also a little bit more information of what you can add. So you can add a local library like you're accustomed to. You can also use the login class for it, which will essentially have the exact same behavior from the maintain library. So it will ask you, do you want to add it relatively or absolute or anything like that? So that's similar to how you're accustomed to it. And then of course now we also have the Git URIs that you can use here, and also the package URIs if you want to do it the manual way.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to show here? Yeah, I think we can take a look at installing a package, I guess.
Yeah. So of course, let's look at how you can actually install a package. I'm going to uninstall the web API framework real quick, just to show you how a fresh installation looks like. Here on the package Zoom, you will see 5 tabs here. We have the description tab, which of course is a quick description of what the library is supposed to be.
Yeah, of course, those will grow and be a little bit more elaborate, but for right now they will do.
Yeah. So you have a license tab. Every package that's going to be pushed to the package manager server actually needs to have a license. Without a license, it will actually give you an error that a license is required to be pushed to the package manager server.
And there's a good reason for that. That's of course when you had a local library, you were kind of saying hey, here you have all my code and deal with it what you want. Now, of course, that everybody can use your library. We did want users to also both to guard the developers that built the library as well as ourselves, to protect them as well. Is that we added support for licenses, and we also require them. And that kind of gives you protection of both your own image or, what kind of maintenance guarantees you give, that kind of stuff. And I think we already covered it in the previous live stream partially, but we also have published all our open source libraries to GitHub now. And all those are available under the BSD free license, which is pretty much do with it whatever you want, as long as you don't misuse our name in, powered by whatever, that kind of stuff. We don't want that. So that's
yeah. The next up, we have the dependencies tab, which of course tells you what this library actually depends on. So right here, we'll see it depends on the new web UI package that we briefly talked about. Yeah. And what you will see is actually the version that it depends on. And right now you will see here that it shows Grave 1.0.0. The notation that you see here is actually the semantic version notation, which means, of course, you have your major, minor, and patch version. So your 1 here is your major, and then you have your minor and your patch. In this case, because we use Grave, what this actually tells the package manager is that we allow every version of web UI that is 1.0.x. Yeah. So say we have 1.
So just the bug fixes.
Yeah, so say we have 1.0.40, that's valid, 1.0.90 is valid, but say we push a version that's 1.1.0, then the web API framework can no longer depend on that version of web UI because it's no longer valid because of this semantic version string. Of course, we could change that. Instead of this grave, we could use a tilde. And that means that every version of 1.x.x is valid as a dependency for this library. Of course, you can also pin it on specific versions, but that's more important for your own workspaces than it is for a library. Otherwise, you're going to get those dependency hell situations where you can't upgrade a library because it's sticked to a specific version, and other libraries might also depend on that, and you're going to get a situation where you can't actually upgrade certain libraries in your workspace. Yeah,
we'll probably show that in a minute as well. So, of course, on the right, you can see that we have a little selector, so you can switch between versions, but let's just install the latest for now, I guess.
Yeah, so simply just press install, and then in your output panel, you will see that it's going to tell you installing DataFlex-dev web API framework. So it tells you who the publisher is of this specific package, which is us in this case. It's going to start the install. And one thing to note is that it says using cache for DataFlex-dev web API framework because I've installed this package before on my machine. So when you first install the package, it's actually cached somewhere on your machine in a global directory. So essentially all the packages only exist once on your machine and are then deep linked to your workspaces. So you don't have 10 copies of the same package somewhere on your machine, even though it looks like that, but it's actually just from a single directory.
Yeah, that's a good thing to notice, is that the dfpkg directory, which is now added, is just a visual almost. So they don't actually exist 5 times or 30 times on your disk. It's just in one place, but they are hard linked to that directory for other tools to find, so that they can see where some people are working on a VS Code plugin, for example. So those are the kind of tools that then depend on the fact that they are somewhat searchable. So that's why they are there. Of course, like Niels already told, is that the output panel becomes a lot more important with the package manager. And that's mostly because the package manager is very asynchronous, because we didn't want people to have the entire user interface block whenever a download was going on or something like that. So that's why we use the output panel. So if you do get issues with the package manager or anything like that, the first thing to look for is the output panel, because it will show you everything that has happened or it was trying to do. And it's also very nice because you can also copy it to the forums or to Helpdesk Express to get some help if you need it.
Yeah, so next up it will tell you is it loaded the library from the cache. And it's actually going to set the files to read-only, because these packages that you install are actually just read-only. You can't actually edit them. And the reason for that is to actually make sure that your workspace is in a workable state for everyone that downloads that workspace. So even if you find a way to edit that file, then the next time you open the workspace, the package manager will notice you've manually messed with those files and prompt you to repair the workspace to make sure that you actually have the same files on your machine that are on the package manager server, to ensure that everyone that loads that workspace has the same working sample. And now it's actually going to tell me processing dependency DataFlex web UI. In this case, we're in web order. We already had that package installed, but if you did not have that package already, it's going to also install that from the package manager to make sure that your workspace has all the libraries it needs to actually use that specific library that you press install on. So it will install those dependencies for you.
And maybe switching up for package version, because of course, sometimes a newer version doesn't necessarily work for you, or it might break something in your application. And with the package manager, you can also, of course, easily switch that back around by just switching version and then pressing the change version. So maybe you can show that.
Yeah, so it's simple. So going to the combo, instead of 1.0.6, we're going to press 1.0.4. Now you see I have the change version button. I'm going to press this. It's going to work a little bit. And then in a second, it should now tell us that the installed version is now 1.0.4. And just like that, we backported to a previous version.
Maybe since we have this page now open anyways, this is also how we can demonstrate, of course, an update. So if we now go to updates, we should also see the updates there as well.
Yeah, so now it actually shows that the Web API framework has a new update to that 1.0.6. Of course, simply press upgrade and it will go back to that newer version. One thing to note actually here is that these packages that you install are actually written to a .svs.log file. That actually pin these packages to specific versions. So even if a update is available and say another developer opens that workspace, it's going to read that log file and make sure that the developer that actually opens that workspace gets the same version of the package that you were actually using and not the latest. So imagine you tell your developer, hey, my workspace is broken. Can you test it on your machine? And he opens it. You actually also want to make sure that he has the same packages as you have on your machine.
Yeah, so that's also why it's very important to push the log file to your version control systems as well.
Yeah,
that's sometimes a question that pops up here as well. Data access was like, what do I need to do with the log file? Definitely push them to Git, because you want everybody to have the exact same situation.
Yeah, so I think that's what we quickly had to show for the package manager in the studio, just simply showing how to download. We're not going to get into pushing packages in this what's new, because it's a more advanced topic that only a small portion of the community is going to be interested in.
I think maybe it's a good idea to show migrating to DataFlex 26, because DataFlex 26 is very much focused on the development release rather than mostly a feature release, and that's why it's very important to, with the entire foundation kind of changing here, also in preparation of what's coming next, is that there are some things that have changed. So maybe we can step through the migration a bit and take, for example, a Flextron.
I just convert
of 25, or any other 25 workspace really. But
so before we get into that, of course, we told a little bit about the web UI package. And the reason, of course, like Bram mentioned, it's more for development update. Like we mentioned, the web UI package is now removed from the DataFlex installation, which means when you migrate your workspace from 25 to 26, it's going to need to remove some files from your workspace and add the new packages to it. So that's what the migration was actually going to help you with. So I'm going to open the workspace of 25. Import a mobile real quick.
Something very good to notice is that, like I said, because this is so important, if you go to docs.dataflex.dev, and you can also find it, of course, in the studio help, but under what's new, there's a migration guide of what are the best choices to do, how to go through migration, to make it as easy as possible. Of course, you will have to go through it once, but, when everything is running, you're kind of solid. So so this is very similar to, of course, what you would normally have. So you have the migration wizard everybody knows by now, I think. So if we just go click through here for a bit, you will see that there are some basic questions. We can do that. And then this is where it gets kind of important. So with 26, the package manager has become DataFlex version agnostic for libraries. What does that mean? We kind of assert, or DataFlex developers can now assert of whether the library actually works or is presumed to work under a new DataFlex version, right? They know what they want at that moment, and we don't want situation like we have now, where we have 10 SWS files from a library of, hey, this is version 23, 24, 25, 26. We don't want it anymore. And that's why we've decided to move to JSON, as well as make it more unified. So DataFlex 26 can also read INI based SWS files from 25, 23, 24. So you don't need to keep on creating all these different SWS files, which is kind of a pain. So when you're migrating, the easiest way, if you're coming from 25 or any other version, you can simply leave your library structure as is. And so when the migration wizard like this asks you what you want to do with your libraries, the easiest thing that you can do is just say, leave them as is, or rather use them as they are. And the package manager will eventually just pick them up. So we'll get into that in a minute. But so pretty much for any library that you get the suggestion here, also in the migration guide, just leave them as is and click through.
Yeah, so we're just going to click through the migration wizard right now.
Yeah, we only had one library, but and then you can decide whether you want to copy or migrate in place. Press next, and that's pretty much all for the migration wizard for the workspace.
And now if we press finish, you should see that we get another migration dialog here.
So this is a one-time thing that we have to do, like you already said. And that's, of course, because now we don't have the web UI with the studio bundled any longer. This is all in the package manager. So you get updates, security patches, all those kinds of things from the web UI. And this is the one phase where you need to migrate from that hard-coded studio version to a package.
Yeah.
So that is what this widget is for. And maybe you can walk us through it.
Yeah, so first off, of course, you see a bunch of checkboxes here in this migration dialog. Of course, the first thing you're going to need to select is install the new packages. So we actually have two new packages. We have Web UI Server, which is going to be used for the normal web applications that are accessed through the internet, through your browser. And then we have the Web UI Flextron that just holds the controls needed for Flextron, so the local control host and those controls. And by default, it will select the needed configuration for your application. So if you use a web application in the migration, it will check Web UI Server on by default. And if you're converting Flextron, it will check on Flextron by default. By default, it's going to prompt you to install the material theme. But of course, you're free to change this to whatever theme you like. Or of course,
if you do have a custom CSS theme, then you can leave it as is.
Yeah. Then next off, you have to remove some files from your app HTML. Like we said before, you had your DF engine folder in your workspace. that had your JavaScript files and you had your CSS themes in there somewhere too. Those files are no longer needed because they're being replaced by the package manager packages. So to make sure that works correctly, you need to remove those folders and make place for the new package manager package directories. So these are checked on by default. Then you have your adjust index HTML. The package manager looks for a specific line in your index HTML where it's going to insert the include statements for these JavaScript files. And of course, your index HTML from 25 and 24 have the not hard-coded, but the reference to the default, old, the old web framework. And it's going to need to remove that to make place for the new package version. And for Flextron, we actually have a new file that's called the Flextron script includes. Which is not going to be shown in this migration. But
it is very nice because with the package manager is able to automatically install the JavaScript and the CSS files for you and also add them to the index HTML. But you might, of course, be wondering, well, how does that work for Flextron? Do I still need to bother doing that there? And the way we kind of decided to fix that is that we now, when you're migrating, we actually add a Flextron script include the HTML file to your app source. And the package manager will maintain that just like it is going to do with the index.html. So it's going to add all the CSS and JavaScript statements there. And then the Flextron script include is actually added at compile time. So it's compiled into your application. And that's the way that when you install, say, the quill editor or anything like that, and you have a combination of both Flextron and web or just Flextron, it will automatically add that statement to the Flextron script includes. And then when you press compile, it will automatically add that and the quill editor will work inside of Flextron as well. So I think a very nice addition.
Yeah, and of course you have a preview button that shows you exactly what your index HTML is going to look like after it's been done editing. So in my case, it has removed those references to the DF engine and has inserted this managed include comment. That's actually what the package manager is going to look at to insert these script tags inside of your index HTML. And we're going to show that in more detail after we're actually done converting this workspace. So I'm going to close this, and of course your final line is adjust the web app source. We used to have the all web app classes.pkg, but we actually renamed it because of course we split it between Web UI server and Web UI Flextron. So based on what your application needs, it's going to change that include statement to the one that's needed for your application. So if we're going to press OK now, it's going to start this migration process.
You can see that it gets busy installing packages and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so at the start it actually also tells you it's going to delete these folders from the app HTML directory, change the index HTML. Right, just like that, it has already converted this workspace for us.
Partially because you have the cache. So one thing I've noticed here is that, of course, because it's asynchronous, if you do have a slower internet connection the first time, it's going to take a while. So don't expect to press build immediately because, the packages might not all be installed yet. So that's one thing to take notice of here. But I think it should go relatively easy.
Yeah, so if we now go to the package manager tab, it will now show us the 4 installed packages. Yeah. So we have our web UI, which is not directly added to this workspace. This is just the core.
An indirect version. Yeah.
Yeah. That the web UI server and Flextron depends on. It has all the JavaScript files and stuff like that. Yeah. We still have our local DataFlex reports alignment because we chose
this was the one that migrated. Exactly.
And then we have our web UI material team and our web UI server package.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to show here is that you can also kind of see the indirect dependency where the difference is that you have an uninstall button for the ones that you directly refer to, and you have a promote button for the ones that are the sub dependencies. Unless you really know what you're doing, you don't necessarily need to promote these libraries, and promoting essentially means adding that library also to your root workspace or the ones that you're working in. What you can kind of see if you click on the web UI and then go to the versions tab is that all the other versions except this one are held back. Now, what does a held back mean? That means that the web UI server package is actually depending on web UI with a direct version. So it only accepts this one. And there's a good reason for that is because these packages are more integrated into each other than a normal package or a normal library would be. So this is also where you can see where the expression actually, so you can never upgrade web UI separately from the web UI server. One fun thing of notice here is that you should also never as such promote the web UI package, because then web UI will have always that version hard-coded, and then the web UI will try to upgrade, but it's not allowed because web UI can't move. So never promote the web UI package. That's essentially the one notice we have to give here. It's also in the migration guide, but make sure you never press that, because otherwise you're wondering, why don't I get any updates? That's
So what we can actually also show you here is that, like we talked about, the package manager able to insert the script includes in your index.html. So if I go to the index.html in my studio editor here, you will now see in the manage includes, it's going to show me this web UI system CSS. It's going to show you the web UI df-min.js, which is the minified version of the JavaScript files, and the material team. The one thing of note here is that it actually shows this question mark v is and then the version number. What it actually does is, of course, when you convert it from 24 to 25, you always had the dreaded error where it said mismatch client server, and you had to Control F5 to clear the cache. Because we append these version numbers in the script includes now, that actually also tells the browser there's a new version of this file available. I need to load that in. So this should hopefully mean that you should never see that version mismatch error again.
Yeah, one thing I noticed as well is that the package manager does this for every library that it provides JavaScript or CSS. So it's not just for us, but it's pretty much for every package that has HTML include files or anything like that. It will do that automatically. So that's very nice.
Yeah, and one thing to note also here is that if you have another package that you're making yourself that depends on web UI, you have to make sure that it actually has the web UI dependency, because when it's inserting these script tags inside of your index.html, it looks at the dependency tree to know which statement should come first and which should come last. So say you make a library that you forgot to depend web UI on, that has some JavaScript stuff, it
might come in front of, exactly.
And you get those errors where it says class not found because it's included before the web app framework is included and stuff like that. We can maybe quickly show what happens if you swap version.
Let's do a downgrade, or in this case a downgrade, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm going to web UI server and downgrade it to .51, so a version back. I'm going to press change version. It's going to work a little bit. So of course, first it was .25, or 52 I mean. Then when I reopen it, it now tells me it's been reverted to 51.
Yeah, and this is also what automatically invalidates your cache then in this case. So very nice. I think we finally fixed that problem.
So I think that's quickly most of the package manager features.
Yes.
And of course, now we're on the topic of the web UI package. Aside from moving it to a package, we've already made some additional improvements. The first improvement that you can't actually visibly really see is that we have actually optimized loading these controls on the browser. From what we've seen, our reports that starting from 20.1, I believe that the loading time started to slow down a little bit, which is also related to the security improvements we've done. But we've seen that from each release, loading started taking a little bit longer each time because of the stuff we've been adding. So we optimized loading these controls on the browser. So we've changed the payload to be a little bit easier to go to the browser. The sizes are smaller, so it's not as hefty to load the entire package at once. And it's now quicker than it used to be in 19.1. So for web order, you can't really easily see the difference. But if you have very large web applications, you should see a pretty notable difference here in loading times. Then one of the other new features we've shown in the What's New already is the web selection form. We have a demonstration of that in the web order workspace. So I'm going to the web order workspace here. Mm-hmm. And you will see that if you go to demo, controls, and then at the bottom here, it shows selection form. It shows the selection forms here at the bottom. So now if I start typing here, you will see it shows me this suggestion that I can click. It's going to select this record. And for now, of course, it only searches on the name. But what you can actually do is select multiple entry items, and it's going to do a multi-text search or multi-column search rather.
Yeah.
So we're going to start searching here, and I type, for example, access miles. It's going to show me all the records that have access in the name. But say, for example, I search on Miami here, it's also going to find records that have...
Yeah, because of the... Yeah,
so this is a nice way to actually have like a multi-column search available in a single control.
Yeah, for those that actually work with the web text form, they might notice that this is very similar because the web selection form was actually something that we wanted to add a long time ago. But didn't make it because of other things. But now it's finally added, and the idea is that this kind of replaces the suggestion form because this selection form partially functions as a combo, but also allows for paging and that kind of stuff. So if your data set is much larger, the suggestion form would only really show you 10 items. But we had some comments that people never really realized that if they kept typing, they might drill down and see other results as well. So this is actually the one that fixes that. So you can actually, have a show more button, actually scroll through all the data or all the options that you might have and give a little bit more user feedback. So that's what this new control adds.
Yeah, and while we're in web order, of course, we might as well show off the dark theme while we're in here. Sure. So if we go to the themes up here, of course, from your user, you can actually hot swap between the themes. Yeah. But you also now have a dark mode, light mode, and a system preference option. If I'm going to press dark mode right now, you will see that my application switches to dark mode. And this works for all the controls, not just here, but the lists, combos,
everything
forms.
Moves, right?
Everything goes along, and you can switch this dynamically however you want. And the system preference actually looks at what your Windows settings are set to. So if you in your Windows you have a preferred dark theme, then the application is also going to render in the dark theme.
Yeah.
And that's of course done by using a different set of CSS variables that are made specifically for dark theme. Yeah. So these are configurable. We've provided the defaults, but you're free to play with them and change them however you would like.
All right. Then we have one more web UI feature, I believe, and that's of course the dialogs.
Yeah, so like we mentioned before, we've added the dialogs to the drill down structure. So I have a web application prepared here. It has a little button here on the dashboard. It says invoke first model dialog. And what you might actually see here in my URL now is that it actually shows the dialog in the state hash. Yeah. So if I were to refresh now, you should also see that it also restores this dialog instead of hiding it like it used to when you're not using this in the drill down structure. Yeah. Of course, you can still use these in the old way, so you're still free to invoke them in the old ways.
They're still backwards compatible.
Yeah, they still work in the old way. They won't be used in the state hash. If you use them in the old way, they work exactly like they used to. We just added a new way to be able to invoke them. You can also stack these on top of each other, have more of them, and you can actually use them to navigate from a dialog also back to a normal view. So I go back, navigate to final view. You will now see that it goes to a web view instead of another model dialog. Right. And if you go back, you actually see it opens this dialog again.
Yeah. Something even nicer, I think, is that they also show up in the navigation designer.
Yeah. So if I go to the studio and open this specific workspace here. Yeah. So here in the navigation design, you will also see that these views have lines.
Show up.
Yeah. These dialogs show up and have lines between each other, so you can actually drag the navigation between them, just like you are used to.
Yeah. Of notice here is that they only show up if you use the new way. So don't expect the what is this show dialog? Pop-up dialog.
Pop-up dialog, yeah.
So those won't be detected, but if you do use the web register path and then send navigate path, then they will show up. And
so like Bram said, you just use the web register path syntax and navigate to them that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on to the next topic, I think, and that's the let's create new, I suppose.
Yeah, let's look at the create new now. So I'm going to guess create new project component here in the top left, and that's going to invoke the create new dialog.
The much nicer looking, at least opinionated, I think. But
yeah. So aside from just overhauling the entire UI, this also makes use of the dark theme feature.
All right, it also automatically switches, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to quickly change my studio to the dark theme version.
You just couldn't leave it, could you?
I could not.
You just had to switch.
Yeah, so now if I open it, you will see it opens in the dark theme version, and it's a little bit easier on the eyes.
To some.
For the demonstration, I'm just going to use the light theme for now. But just know
it exists.
It exists, and all feature wizards that might be created now are going to be built with Flextron, and are going to have this capability switching between light and dark mode.
Yeah, so do let us know in the comments, maybe even what you think of the new style. We will be attempting to give everything a little bit of a revamp, but so do let us know your opinions. Be kind.
So aside from just changing the user interface, we've also changed the name of some of these wizards. You as seasoned developers might know what these wizards are meant to be used for. But we noticed that a lot of these new developers see these wizard names and are just kind of scratching their head like, what is this supposed to be? So that was hopefully an attempt to make them a little bit more clear for new users to actually know what they're supposed to be doing. One thing you also notice here is that it has a web button here at the top. If I collapse it now, you will see nothing else because I actually have this checkbox only show relevant toggled on.
Yeah.
So a change we did is, of course, a new developer is not going to know which wizard is supposed to be for Windows and which for web until they press the button and they get the error saying this wizard is not available for this project type. So now it is only show relevant checkbox is toggled on by default to only filter the wizards that you can actually use for this project. But of course, you're free to toggle the checkbox off and still have them all displayed like how it used to work.
Right. Among here, there should be one new item, being the Excel import wizards.
Yeah, before we get into that, there's also a new search bar, which actually lets you globally search between these categories. So say I'm looking at the projects and I want to still find the select wizard, I can just type select, press enter, and it's just going to show all the wizards that have the select in the name. Just a simple search to actually make it easier to find the wizard that you're meant to be clicking. First, like Bram just said, we can get into the next topic, which is the Excel import wizard.
Which shows up.
Yeah, and it shows up, but if you are looking for it without using the search bar, it's located under class creation and import. Yeah. And I believe, never mind, it's located on other files and sources. But you can start it from here, and if you do not want to start it from here, it's also available under the database dropdown and the Table Explorer context menu. I believe, it does import Excel.
Multiple ways to get there.
Yeah. I'm going to start it right now, and it's going to start the Excel import wizard. And right here, we can go to next, and it's going to ask us to pick our Excel file.
Select the source.
So I'm going to use the FlexRoast agenda that you might have seen if you've been to FlexRoast that Harm used in his demonstration. And here you have the option if you want to make it in the embedded database, or maybe you want to use a SQL backend for this. For what's new, we're just going to use the embedded database. Yeah. So if I press next, it's going to tell me the tables that it has actually found from this Excel sheet. In this case, it has a presenter, a room, and a presentation. And it's going to show me data like what is the table name. So if I wanted to say my Excel sheet had a really weird name, I could rename the table name to something more readable. And I can tell it from what row it should read and to what row it should read and from what column it should read. This is useful if you have an Excel sheet where at the top you have like a comment saying this Excel sheet is meant to be used for this. Yeah. And you don't want that row to actually be read. You can skip that row by putting read from row at 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that. If you press show data sample, it's going to show you the structure of what this table is.
What is actually read, right?
Yeah. You can, of course, do that for all the different tables that it's attempting to generate. You can, of course, choose if you do not want to use this sheet. You can just deselect the checkbox and it won't be used. For instance, we're just going to use all of them. Toggle them on. Go to next. And now it's actually going to ask us...
show you what tables it's going to generate from it.
Yeah. In this case, it's going to create the presenter, room, and presentation table. Of course, just like before, you can change the table name here too. And you can actually select a primary key if you wish to do so. These examples all have a primary key that's already built into the Excel sheet. Maybe a bit of a bad example, but if you do not have a primary key, it's actually going to prompt you, hey, we notice that there's no primary key in this Excel sheet, should we create one for you? And it's going to automatically create a new column in this table. And it's going to also create a new entry in the df_last_id table.
Yeah, which we added in 25.
Yeah. And in the case that you're using SQL, you just mark it as a primary key, this new column, and not make a new entry in this df_last_id table. Of course, for the future, you can configure stuff like the length, what column type it should be, like a number or a string. I'm not going to change too much here. I'm just going to leave it at the defaults. And if we go to next, and now it's going to tell us it's complete. And if we press finish, it has now
migrated data. And if we now go to the table viewer, I suppose.
Yeah, you can now see that these things are actually imported into this workspace. And just like that, we can simply, very easily convert an Excel sheet to the database table. And it should also automatically create the data dictionaries for you. One thing to note here is that it does not create relations if there are any.
Yeah.
So
you will need to configure those, but already filling in all the data, I guess that really helps already. So.
Yeah, and I assume if you have an Excel sheet, you probably do not have a structure set up where it has like a primary key, amian, or foreign key and stuff like that. But just be aware that you are supposed to put the relations manually if you have any relationships in your Excel data. That's it for the Excel import wizard. Then we're up to the next feature.
Yeah. I believe that's
the dashboard samples.
Nearing the end. Yeah, exactly. So let's take a look at that.
So next up we have the dashboard samples. That's in the web or the mobile workspace.
Wow, everything green. We're making money, guys.
Yeah, so the idea here was to actually have some engaging data on the dashboard.
Yeah.
In 25 we had these widgets and you had these lists and you could click on them and navigate to the zooms. But of course, if you have a end user, you want this end user to be looking at relevant data. Example, like how are our sales doing? Do we have any low inventory? Do we need to restock on certain items? Or maybe you want to track the performance of your salesperson, like who's been earning the most this month or who's been underperforming and stuff like that. So like you see, we have these lists that actually show like, these customers have had the most revenue this, in this case, this year. And it uses CSS to actually render these as green items for positives and red as negatives. So at a glance, you can easily see this is bad, this is good. And we have a sample that's a little bit hidden here at the bottom.
Sadly.
That shows you how you can use charts in these widgets and show them on the dashboard.
Of notice, of course, that the charts is now also a package which you can download.
Yeah.
With the click of a button. So that's very nice. So just generally showing you ways of how you can build a more dynamic dashboard, which of course 25 technology already provided you with. So very nice.
And some kind of nice widgets to have, like a time zone thing. Just fun to have stuff.
Yeah.
And like you might have noticed here at the top, it says this year, which is the filter that's being used for this dashboard. Of course, you might want to compare different time frames. So I can also select this month. And what we'll actually do is compare August of this year to August of last year. Because most of the time it's not really that interesting to compare this month against last month. It's more comparable to look at this month compared to that same month of the last year. Exactly. Yeah. Because it's in the same time frame, because of course your sales are influenced by vacations and stuff like that. So it's more relevant to look at the same month of the year before that. Same thing if you pick this week. It shows you this week of the previous year.
All right, yeah. So great example for you guys as well, for those either on Flextron or on web apps. I think let's get to the next, the last topic already, sadly.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the docs.
Yeah, so this is the new docs, hosted at docs.dataflex-dev.
Yeah.
Some of the new features, or one of the big new features, the shiny new Ask AI button here at the top.
Yes.
And as you can imagine, what this does is actually it's going to go through all the files in the documentation to give you a proper answer.
And examples and whatnot.
So say, for example, I ask it, how do I use PB enabled. And you can also ask these questions in your own language. They're not tied to English, so you can ask them in Portuguese, Dutch, German, whatever you can think of. And it should also give you the answer in that specific language. I'm going to ask you, how do I use PB enabled? It's going to go through the documentation, look at how PB enabled is supposed to be used, and give me all this big text on how I should be using PB enabled.
Very elaborate way of telling you.
Yeah, show you the common usage, and it also has references to where it actually found this information, so you know it's not just bogus. It actually has links to the pages where it gets the information from. It has some code snippets that you can simply just press copy and paste into your own editor. And at the very end, I believe it shows you
where it found it.
Yeah, all the sources used in this response are actually also shown to you.
Yeah.
And it has a little feedback button. Was this useful for you, with a thumbs down or thumbs up?
So we can improve.
Yeah, so say, for example, you get an answer that is not satisfactory to what you want. You can press the thumbs down and insert your feedback, so we can actually use that to train this AI chat a little bit better. So for for next people who are actually going to prompt questions, it won't make that same mistake again.
So what this is also mainly providing is if people are coming from different languages or anything like that, it is much nicer to, if you don't know what you're looking for, then I think that this can be a great help if you know the term in whatever programming language you're from. Or if, of course, we guys also don't always remember everything. So this is a very nice tool to quickly search through something. Also, the search has been improved, greatly improved. Yeah. I think that's it's much faster now. So if you look for something very specific, it's searches through all the documentation that is available and it shows you immediately. This will be a nice setup for everything that's going to come to DataFlex as well, and provides you with the exact same sample. So, greatly improved overall.
Yeah, and the code blocks in these samples now actually have syntax highlighting that are more relevant to the DataFlex language, like how it is in the studio. And then aside from that, also a quick +1 is that it now actually also has a dark mode.
Yeah,
that you can easily toggle by pressing the little sun icon next to the search bar.
You do love your dark mode.
I love my dark mode.
In the meanwhile, we got some questions. So the first one is Niels, who would like to have a web column selection form. Well, shouldn't be that hard to add, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds like a cool feature to have.
We'll take it up, Niels. And also we have Emil, would like to know if we are going to provide a tab container-like control with the looks of the What's New panel. So that's What's New. So we go to the What's New panel. Let's find
You mean
out.
like the What's New panel in the website, or?
Yeah, as a web control, I think. Is this what you are referring to? Maybe you can also grab the chat.
I don't have the chat here with me.
Oh, create new is what he's looking for. So he wants a vertical. Okay. Yeah, so I think we can take a look whether we can do that. We do have some experiments going on with having also the menu bar. So the thing that's mostly at the top right now, there are also some examples of making that vertical as well. So I think that's very similar to this. So I think we can say that we are, looking into similar concepts. So we'll definitely take note and bring you hopefully an update instead of an entire new DataFlex version. All right. If there are no other questions, I think we're going to round up.
Yeah, I think that's it for this What's New live stream.
Yeah, and I hope we got you all excited to use 26 and all the things that is going to bring. So let's finish up. I do have some very nice announcements to make, and that is that next week, or presumably next week, we're going to have another live stream. And that's going to be a completely different live stream, because that is going to concern DataFlex 27 with the new technology stack. Tool chains in it. We're of course going to go more into that. For those who have been to Flexroads, they already partially know what it's going to be about. So around the same time today, but next week, we're going to talk about DataFlex 27, and then with harm, of course. So do look forward to that. Also take a look, and of course the blog post that we're going to post, to keep track of that. And we hope to see you next time as well. And of course, for next What's New later on, hopefully next year as well. So guys, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.